Now?
Okay, I think you're good to go.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Little on the quiet side, but we can hear you.
Okay. It's funny, I've been using this all day, so. All right. I will call tonight's meeting of the Oxford Planning Commission to order. It is 7:01. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Dana. Mr. Dana made a motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Keebler seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Let the record reflect all the commission hands are raised. Item 3, I'll entertain and, well, actually, are there any changes, corrections, additions to the minutes? Mr. Bracken.
Yes, on page 6, I believe it references for the A votes, Ms. Rumanier, and I think it's supposed to be Ms. Rosenberg. For the yays.
It's funny as I did not catch that. Good catch, sir.
Yeah, the system we use online picks up all board and commission members, and so it probably snagged the wrong R. Thanks for catching that.
All right.
Problem. I figured that's what happened.
That correction is made. Are there any other additions, changes, or corrections? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as amended by Mr. Bracken. Mr. Dana makes the motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Rosenberg. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Let the record reflect all commission members voted in the affirmative. Sam, just in case, do we have any members of the public?
We do not, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
All right, we will pass through item number 4, reports from boards and commissions. I'm just going to start and we'll go clockwise. Mr. Keebler, anything that you would like to share with the group? Thank you, sir. Mr. Dana.
Yes, I can report the following with respect to City Council, and that is I heard this at length, and certain members of City Council want to congratulate the Planning Commission because of the very detailed work they have offered with respect to, in particular, to the development at Forest Park, Forest Lane, and Lake Forest. And I just want to pass on that they thought that the planning division did an excellent job with the details of that. And the conclusions reached were viewed, in my judgment, quite favorably. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Dana. Dr. Brithridge.
Nothing in particular other than there's a lot going on that others can inform that, you know, in terms of the comprehensive plan and how the Planning Commission fits into that. In a kind of a parallel track, the Climate Action Steering Committee is moving towards some recommendations on greenhouse gas emissions reduction targets, which is something that may be integrated into the comprehensive plan. So there's obviously a lot going on, kind of at the policy level. And so it should be a productive 2021.
Perfect. Thank you. Mr. Bracken, anything you would like to share?
Sure, just to let people know that we're still working on promoting solar and ideas around solar, greenhouse gas inventory, and still working on, pollinator gardens and potentially maybe in the future a city. A lot of work to be done there, but these are some of the ideas that we're thinking about and working on.
Perfect. Thank you. Ms. Blackmer.
Yeah, the Parking and Transportation Advisory Board met on Monday, and I have to say most of it was updates from Jessica Green, who's doing incredible work on the Oxford Area Trail and on our attempt to put together a platform for Amtrak should Amtrak come to Oxford, which sounds like it's a little bit of like a who goes first situation in the grand scheme of things, tied up with complicated big money outcomes at a federal level, but still very exciting possibilities. And so we just have a lot of exciting work to do. And, you know, obviously one of my goals is to make sure that I'm in charge of the comprehensive planning and the liaison for the Parking and Transportation Advisory Board. And I want to make sure that it's the work that we do is connected to the priorities of planning. So I will do my best to make sure that there's cross flow between these two commissions.
Perfect. Thank you. Vice Chair Rosenberg.
Thank you. I actually have a bunch to say today. I will say Housing Advisory Commission was canceled last month. We did not have a meeting. And then I did go to the steering committee meeting for the strategic planning for the city as a representative of planning. So city council is going to approve all those nominations in I believe next week. And then we're going to start meeting in May. And as far as what planning has to do, there is a report of existing conditions that each commission needs to turn into the city. So I reached out to Zach and Sam, and they provided me with a bunch of information so that we could compile that, we meaning me, I guess, compile that report like really easily. And so I'm looking forward to being a part of that process. And then, and with Carla, I look forward to being part of that process with Carla. The other thing is Sam and I met a few weeks ago. He had this exciting idea for the city, which is that he would like to look into changing the PUD code. And I would love the subdivision code as well, where it is actually mandated for developers to provide either affordable housing or have a good environmental impact upon the area where the PUD is. And if they do not wish to provide those things, they also would have the opportunity to pay in lieu fees. And that would go into initiatives in the city for like affordable housing and stuff like that. So I felt like that was a super exciting meeting. I hope Sam is like working on that and would update me if anything was going on with that, because I think that's a really great step for the city to help with affordable housing issues that we have. And on that note, I'll just leave you with that even though housing didn't have a meeting last month, there were several articles in the Miami Student in the last few weeks. So, you know, anybody, any one of you that would like kind of a condensed yet informative kind of view of what Housing Advisory Commission has been talking about and working on, check out those articles in the Miami Student.
Of course, I mute myself so I don't take away and then I forget to unmute. From HAPC, tomorrow we have our next meeting, and one business item we have is a lift on the back of a historical property. So there'll be some discussion on that. Obviously, I have no context on which direction or how things will go, so I'll share that in the next meeting we have. As far as old business from last month, we really, to be candid, outside of having the opportunity to meet Brad Spurlock from the Lane Libraries, he's now overseeing both of the archives or regional history operations in both Hamilton and Oxford. Outside of that, really we just had updates and closing the loop on some old business with 131, is it North Church? Or West High, sorry, I was mixing up two properties. West High, and then with the Sigma Chi property, there were some procedural things that Sam and I took care of. Other than that, from HAPC, there's not much to report. So I will hand it over to Mr. Perry and Mr. Wilson.
I would like to, Mr. Watt, if you don't mind, I do have a staff update. The comp plan's been mentioned a couple times, so I've got a single slide to share that will give just a brief illustration on what the plan is for the comp plan or strategic plan. There's been a few different names mentioned, but we don't actually have a name for it yet. but it is going to be a comprehensive plan update, or a community strategic plan is one of the phrases we've been using. So this is just an overview of some of the things that were mentioned. We are in the beginning stages of creating these facts or these existing conditions. And so on the left is kind of the big picture process of identifying where we are as far as the 2008 comp plan, what we heard. And so Shauna touched on that a little bit, and as did Carla. And that will be yet to come through the representation on the steering committee, which will be partially appointed next week from the board and commission chairs and designees. Some of you are sitting on that, thankfully. And then that last big chunk is the moving forward. So looking kind of back at that feedback loop of what we heard from staff and also the board and commission designees and at-large representatives, and then packaging that into the vision for the community's future, looking into the next couple of decades. So, and then on the right is just kind of the details of how that will work. So this is a comp plan update that is going to be staff-led versus a consultant-led. So there may be some stopping and starting and some pausing, but we feel like we'll have much better ownership rather than farming it out and be able to control kind of the details of it. So we're excited about that. So any questions, let me know. I'm happy to answer them, but with good representation on planning that are on the steering committee, it should work pretty well. So we're excited about that moving forward. The process will take a while. It will take 1 to 2 years to get done with those big chunks, and it will be. We'll reach out for help as we need it from consultants, but we hope to do a lot of it in-house. So we're looking forward to that.
We do have one usual yet not virtually common guest. Sam, if you would like to introduce her just in case anybody is not familiar, and maybe say a word or two.
Yeah, I would. Thanks, Mr. Watt. So, some of you know Lynn Taylor, who's been doing the minutes and agendas for city boards and commissions for almost 15 years now. So Lynn is going to be retiring. So it's fortuitous that she would pop into this meeting and give a little bit of a goodbye. So I didn't ask her to speak or anything, but you get to see some of the behind the scenes work. So there's Lynn Taylor for you. She'll be retiring at the end of this month and moving on, spending more time at home.
Is it possible to make a comment of thanks?
Absolutely.
I just think that the work that Lynn has done has been outstanding. The details, the conception, capturing very well what the members of the planning department have said. I feel it's been outstanding, and I feel it's been done with a good spirit. And so I congratulate her and wish her well.
Seconded.
Dr. Prithridge?
So yeah, I've spent many a Tuesday night and lots of days in between working with Lynn. I don't even remember when I joined the Planning Commission, but I think it was maybe like 2005 or something, or 6, the first time I sat. And yeah, the professionalism in the process, but also the positive energy that I'm sure the public sees, and that in terms of just, yeah. So it's you've been through a lot in the community development department, but you've been steady as a rock. And so, yeah, we're really going to miss you. And I hope we still see you walking around town on your lunch break. Maybe you'll drive in to walk around town. But yeah, thank you for all your hard work. I heard there was a retirement in community development. I'm like, I hope it's not Lynn, but congratulations. I'm happy for you.
Thank you.
Well, and I just like to thank Lynn as well. Being involved and being chair, there's a lot that she does behind the scenes that makes this look really polished and smooth. You'd be amazed at the stuff that she just has sitting on her desk waiting for this, and she's playing field general behind the scenes. And I do want to publicly point out that I offered to trade places with her, and unfortunately she said no. So when you're out in Utah, send me that postcard.
That's right.
So thanks, Lynn. You've done a great job and we appreciate it.
Well, thank you for all your kind words. It's very appreciated. And I'll think of you when I'm in Utah.
I know you will. All right. Well,
Thanks, Sam.
all right. So thank you for everyone, the comments for Lynn. Like I said, she has definitely been an unsung driver and force to making this just run impeccably well. So I'm looking, and I don't believe we have any outstanding staff, commission, or board reports. So without objection, we'll move on to business item 6. And these are, for all intents and purposes, these are, well, they're not voting items for this evening. They're presentation and Q&A. So I will hand over to Mr. Perry for the annexation update from staff.
Thank you, Mr. Watt. I'll share my screen again. So I wanted to give you all an update on some council action that took place regarding an annexation. And I wanted to put that in the context of the comprehensive plan, since we've been talking about that. There's a 22-acre piece of property that you'll learn a little bit more about here in a moment. And as you look at this map from the 2008 comprehensive plan, you can see that there's a bold black line, actually a dashed red line around the perimeter. And that is the generalized boundary for services, for sewer services, urban services. And you can see within that, there are areas that are not actually in the city limits. So the black dash line was the city limits at the time in 2008. The area that's been referred to as the Garnett Farm is the property that you'll learn a little bit more about in a moment, that the city manager was authorized by city council to file a petition on behalf of the owners for the 22 acres. So there's 4 parcels there. So one of the parcels is not within the annexation. So I just wanted to share that with you. The process is fairly lengthy. The Board of County Commissioners have heard it and have accepted it as well. And so part of that process is to determine if there's any adjacent property owner comments, any township comments. And so that time frame of 60 days allows for that to happen. There's not actually a planning commission function for the annexation process, even though I think in a perfect world, there could be an opportunity for determining whether there's adequate service that can be provided. But since there's not a statutory requirement, there's not a local requirement for planning commission. This was a process the city manager typically does when there's annexation request. Since it's 100% requested, there's not any property owners within the area that have expressed any opposition. It's a 100% consent or voluntary annexation that's called the expedited type 2 process, and that allows that to happen pretty smoothly, but it does take a little bit of time. If you saw on the map, it was labeled, it was colored green at the time, and that was for potential park expansion. It was adjacent to the community park. It didn't identify it as residential or any particular type of use. And again, in a perfect world, and I've seen some communities do where they'll actually make a comprehensive plan update before they accept the annexation or before they do the rezoning. That's not the practice that we've had in Oxford. And since the comprehensive plan updates are typically every 10 to 15 years, usually it's hard to get those in sync with understanding a shorter time frame request for the sale of a property or a development request. So that's why that is. So that's just a little bit of background of what's been going on, kind of outside of the planning world. But still, you'll see it come back in most likely in your lap as far as a review. And tonight is a concept review request that we have traditionally done, that where there's no vote that's requested to be taken. It's completely voluntary from a proposal, and we've done these for potential future plan developments, subdivisions, and this one would be a plan development. both commercial or residential. We've done these in the past. So it's just an opportunity for individual planning commission members to ask questions or make comments, but in no way do you have to gain any kind of consensus or vote. So whenever you're ready, I can put that on the screen as well.
Dr. Brithridge?
Just quickly before we move into the concept review portion, Sam, just on the idea of having planning commission input on annexations. We've talked about that. We had a planning project that talked about interjurisdictional collaboration. And, you know, at the time we kind of concluded that there would be merit to thinking about annexation in a planning context before just annexing. Can you think about what process, if we were to have a conversation about changing those policies locally, what that would entail? Because I think that the planning commission and council would probably benefit from talking about it. I think it shouldn't just be an administrative decision. I think there should be some conversation about it. Not reflecting on this application at all. This is just in general. So if you could think about what a plan of action procedurally and what you would need from us as planning commissioners or council, I'd really appreciate that.
Mr. Watt, would you like me to give some feedback on that?
If you would like to give some feedback, I think that is definitely welcome.
Sure, I'd be glad to. I think there's different ways it could be done. The Planning Commission has bylaws. There's also code in Chapter 11 for the Planning Commission, and there's also the charter. So I believe any of the three of those could be used to modify the purview or the powers of the Planning Commission to make it more of a predictable process. If not, then it would just rely on a city council preference or some kind of administrative policy that would not live beyond the current administration or the current elected or appointed officials. So if it's something that you felt like as a commission, you know, we want to understand what is the value of the Planning Commission looking at a potential annexation, you know, do we want to grow, and what are the reasons for that? What are the pros and cons for that? If that's something that you want to codify, then you have those three ways to do that: the codified ordinance, the bylaws, or the charter. So if that's something you want to think about, we can talk about it in a future meeting, but that's the way I see it.
Sam, having Mr. Keebler and I sat on the charter revision, and that's once a decade. So I think that time-wise might not be the best option. Would you be able to, and completely your preference, if you would just like to send an email with information, or maybe at the next meeting, after folks have had the chance to think about it, maybe we could have a quick snippet about different options. Like I said,
Sure.
Mr. Keebler and I are well aware of the charter version. Mr. Keebler?
Well, I would point out the fact that you don't have to wait 10 years to do a charter revision.
True.
It's mandated.
It's mandated.
You do it every 10 years.
Yes.
But if there was something important that a body felt that needed to be changed, it could be brought up at any general or even, I believe, a special election or primary election. So you'd have to form the committee again, but there's nothing that says it has to be every 10 years.
Mr. Dana.
May I just ask you, Chair Watt, if you could speak up just a little bit?
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Sure. My microphone has apparently done its job for the day and is protesting.
I'm very sympathetic to what you're dealing with.
So, is that better, Mr. Dana?
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
All right. So, Mr. Perry, again, if it's something that you could easily give a couple paragraphs and send for folks to digest before the meeting, I think that's fair. Or if it's something where you'd like to dive in a little bit more at the next meeting, again, I will leave it to your preference.
Will do. We've got another update we need to finish up too on the alley lot discussion from a few months back. So
Perfect.
We'll pick a meeting where we can talk about a couple of those where there's not a major case.
Great, thank you. Seeing no objection, I will go ahead and move us on to the concept review for Brookfield Road, known as Owl's Landing. It's a PUD. Miss Reed from Bear Becker and Mr. Perry will help you with any screen sharing you need.
Okay. So as Sam did a great kind of overview of the annexation, this is the proposed plan that we're looking to do. And with me today is Todd Hall of Todd Homes. Todd is the developer. At this time, I would like Todd just to kind of introduce himself and tell you a little bit about what he's done, and then I'll dig into the development and give you kind of an overview.
Sure. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Annetta. Thank you for the introduction. Etta and I were doing some math last night at a planning commission, and I caught her a little bit off guard. And I said that it was my 21st year being self-employed in the home building and real estate development service business. And she had to go back and do the math. And when we got out of the meeting, she did confirm. So that being said, I've been self-employed in Butler County for 21 years in the Southwest Ohio. And I'm a locally owned, family-owned small company, build about 50 houses a year. And we really thrive towards, so to speak, blue-collar America. And we have a great program that provides a wonderful house at an affordable price. And we've enjoyed working in Butler County, living in Butler County. I've been very active over my career in Butler County and numerous different items. More than welcome to check me out on my webpage sometime and get to know me a little bit better. And I'm very easy to find. My cell phone number is on the webpage. My email address is on there. So any questions, I'm here, but I wanted to let you know that it has been an absolute pleasure to work with Mr. Perry at the City of Oxford, and I look forward to progressing this project with the best interest of the community at heart. I believe that the reason why we're all here in this room today is for a better future tomorrow, and that's my company's philosophy is what are we planning for the future of tomorrow? Because when we look back in 10 years, 5 years, or 50 years, it will have my name or my legacy on it, and I want it to have been sustainable for the community and been beneficial to the community, and that's why I'm here today.
Great. So as Todd said, we've worked together for a couple decades now, and so we kind of tag team a lot of these presentations. So you'll see Todd a lot more moving forward. And so what we wanted to do, since we had some time because of the annexation, we wanted to present the plan to you ahead of time and get some initial feedback rather than just go ahead, spend the time and energy putting a preliminary PUD together and then, try and work through it in a couple meetings. We really kind of wanted to, bring everybody together and let's create a neighborhood that works for everyone. And so what we have here is 22 acres on the west side of town. It's just west of Autumn Drive on Brookfield Road. The community park is to the north, which is to the top of your sheet, top of your screen there. Right now on the property, there is an existing home and an existing pond and some outbuildings. The buildings will be removed with this development and the pond will be expanded. But what we're proposing to do here, it is going to be an R1B PUD. And we're going to do a mix of two different types of units. We're going to do detached single family on the individual lots. We'll have 76 single family lots. And then we're going to do a product. It's a quad building. It's basically 4 units in an attached building. And we're going to have 16 of those units. And those are kind of clustered together to the east side. The whole development will be tied together with private streets. There'll be curb on both sides of the street, sidewalk on both sides of the street, as well as street trees. So it'll look for all intents and purposes like a public street, but they will be private, maintained by the HOA. We will have a central clubhouse there as you come in from the boulevard entry off of Brookfield Road. Let's see here. We do have a stub to the west in case that property should develop in the future to provide connectivity, as well as pedestrian connectivity to the park to the north. As you can see, there's 2 dark dashed lines. Those represent a 10-foot wide trail that will go to our northern property line for a future connection to the park. And then for those of you that all follow the Oats Trail will be constructed across our frontage, and that's currently in the design process. So you can see that there. So this is a very connected development for our residents. We will have 2 detention or retention basins. We don't know which at this time. One thing I'd like to point out is that we will have increased buffers on this development. As you know, with a PUD, we are required to have a 25-foot perimeter buffer. Todd did not think that was enough. So we are going to have 40-foot buffer to the north, to the west, and to the south. And then we're going to provide a 60-foot buffer to the east. So that will provide us with a nice little close-knit community with some great green space around the perimeter. And so that's really just kind of a high-level overview of the development. I kind of want to just open it up and see kind of your thoughts and feedback with what you may have and suggestions you may have to how we could improve it.
Mr. Dana.
May I ask, Ms. Reed, may I ask, maybe you pointed this out, but where will if you go back to the screen, where will the walkways be constructed? I'm trying to get a feel for where they are in relationship to the overall development and to the individual houses.
Sure. We'll have the Oats Trail along Brookfield Road, along our entire frontage. We'll have the standard sidewalk along both sides of all the interior private streets.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll have a 10-foot trail connections to the north towards the park.
There will also be a connecting trail in the middle of the property as well, in between the multifamily and the single family.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mr. Keebler?
I guess, and I'm sure Ed is expecting this, both of my hat as a planner and my previous hat as assistant fire chief here for 30 years, I am utterly surprised that you only have one entrance into this big subdivision, into this big area. First of all, I want to say I'm thrilled to see this. Of all my friends, people particularly who are getting into my age group, which is not young anymore, keep talking about finding a place like this where we don't have to maintain our own yards and things are taken care of, etc. We all know that Veriker Farms is very popular, and yet nothing else has come up. And so I'm thrilled to see this. My only comment is it needs another entrance off Brookfield Road, folks. You can't have 76 lots with a single entrance and exit. You just can't do it. And I think if that isn't fixed, this thing's DOA. My suggestion would be that, so you don't have to worry about setbacks or something, that one of them be right here next to that first pond. You know, because you don't have to worry about setbacks of the houses on each side of it, you know, taken out of the lot there, because obviously any road could be, any entrance could be right there. And the fact that it comes in on a curve because of the size of the streets and stuff, I don't see that that's any big deal. And it would be pretty easy to do right there, and it wouldn't destroy your bigger entrance by the clubhouse and stuff. It'd be far enough spread away. It's far enough away from Autumn Drive that it shouldn't be an issue. And that would seem somewhat logical to me, but I'll leave that up to you. But you got to have another entrance and exit to that 76 lots.
All right, we'll go with Vice Chair Rosenberg, then Dr. Prithridge, then Mr. Dana.
So Mr. Keebler actually just said everything that I had been thinking, and he raised his hand first. So I'd just really like to echo pretty much identical to what Mr. Keebler just said. I agree that there needs to be more connectivity to Brookville. And then where he suggested in particular by the pond also seemed to me to be a good idea. But particularly since there's the multifamily housing with 16 units like right there, that just seems like a good place to be able to have some traffic go out onto Brookville without having to go all the way around those other houses.
Dr. Prithridge.
So I want to begin with two different thanks. One is that you're interested in developing this kind of product, which I think the community will respond to. I think it will tend on, just because of the size of the lots, it will serve a broad audience, and I think there's a market for it here. Two, I want to thank you for choosing to place it in a location that's really kind of a logical place for subdivision. And three, I want to thank you for doing the concept review, because that allows us to have this conversation, and I really appreciate that dialogue. So it makes it smoother. So yeah, since I like this overall, I think it's a logical subdivision. My suggestions are, I do think on the southeastern corner of this, there needs to be some connectivity to Brookville Road, just merely because I think that's where most people are going to be, even if they're just walking or biking out of the development towards town, they're going to cut past your pond there anyway. So to me, I was thinking multi-use path there. I agree with Mr. Keebler, it needs to be an emergency exit. In some other circumstances, we've done 10-foot multi-use pathways that have bollards that could be, in an emergency, you could knock it over. I just think we need some connectivity in that southeastern corner, and I will leave it you guys to figure it out. I love that you've made the connections that you're not going to argue about stubs to the west. I think that's really logical. And I think your multi-use path connections to the north are pretty logical too. Two little details to think about. The one multi-use path that's at the northwest corner, I'm pretty sure that's a wetland up in there. That part of the park may be tricky. So you may want to take a look at the environmental conditions up there. I just know that in the springtime, I hear peepers in the water in there, and there's something going on up in there. So adjusting that to local conditions and hydrology. My only other suggestion, and this may mess with your lot layout, is I love another multi-use path connection. But one could, so the one that's currently by the pond, I see why you want to put it there. Where lot 44 is, that's another option, because you could actually, it's not very far through the woods then to actually connect to the multi-use path to the south of the aquatic center. So the city hypothetically could pick that up. The multi-use path towards the northeast, it's basically going to lead into woodlands, and it will just always devolve into a footpath. And that's fine too, but you potentially could have two multi-use path connections that actually would connect to something on the north. I think lot 44 is a little bit closer, because the woods, it's not that much woods to punch through there if the city wanted to meet you on the other side. So yeah, that's the other thing. Those are the only things I really appreciate the layout, and I'll stop with that.
Mr. Dana?
I wanted to ask if one could be a little bit more specific, the builder, Ms. Reed, whoever, as to the price point. There's no question this is the kind of development that I believe that we as a city want. But I'm interested if either one of you has some idea of a range or a price point for these.
Yeah, my intention and my goal is, at full disclosure, prices are a moving target right now. Unfortunately, I'm up 365% on material that anything is wood. For example, Home Depot is now charging $98 a sheet for a 4x8 3/4 tongue and groove. As of last week, the market is up 3.6% in 7 days in lumber. But directly to answer your question, I'm trying to bring this product in the low 200s.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hall, good luck with a $25 2x4.
That's where I'm at right now. It's kind of like one of those things where you try to accomplish a price target, and everything goes up and goes down. I've been in the business a long time, so hopefully, in 6 or 8 months when this project's underway, that things have came back to a little bit of reality. I have my fingers crossed on a lot right now with lumber commodities and some other commodities.
I have a couple comments, but I'd like to open the floor to Mr. Bracken and Ms. Blackmer first.
So I did have a quick question. One thing. Is this going to be age restricted at all, or is it going to be open to all people?
Yeah, I have no intention on age restricting this product. I know that when I moved houses, I was really struggling with some age restricted communities that I wanted to live in Butler County, and it put me at a real disadvantage. So that is not my intention to age restrict this product.
Okay, that's great. And then regarding, there was a I think Mr. Keebler mentioned that he was interested in the no maintenance aspect of this. And I was wondering, we've seen other developments where the yard space is really held in common with like a maintenance plan. How is that being, is there a scheme for how that's going to be addressed here? The maintenance of the common spaces?
And that's a great question. And to be completely transparent with you, which I always will be and always am, Etta and I have been going back and forth on that for about a month now, and trying to come up with the exact language and the exact restrictions, not restrictions, but the exact language that will control the HOA. What I'm trying, and so I don't have those in black and white, so to speak, right now, but I can tell you what I'm trying to accomplish. I'm trying to accomplish a product where a customer can move into a community, into almost virtually maintenance-free community, where they don't have to do anything with the houses, and also to where hopefully they're not walking up a lot of steps, but they do have the amenities to go out and walk on the sidewalks and see all the trees and things like that. So to directly answer your question, we have not made it that far, but that is the direction that we're trying to go.
That's great. And I appreciate so much your mention of the steps. I've served for a while on our AARP Age Friendly Oxford task force, and we have a real interest in universally designed housing and visitability, and definitely see that there's a need for that in our community. So I think that would just be a really important amenity, and to the extent that you can think about that and offer those types of amenities, it would be just, I think, a huge asset, something that's really not available, especially with so much of our historic housing.
Yeah, and to tell you, that's exactly why I'm sitting here today, is because I focused in on that need, and that is really what has driven this product almost 100%.
Mr. Bracken?
I generally view this favorably, mostly positive thoughts, and I don't have any suggestions that haven't already been mentioned. I think we're mostly on the same page is how I see this.
Perfect. The comments I want to share are, very similar. I think Mr. Keebler laid the foundation for what a lot of us were thinking with connectivity. Dr. Prithridge and Vice Chair Rosenberg, I would just echo what they've said. I have no disagreement with my colleagues. I would like to build on Dr. Prithridge. Again, I have no preconceived preference. As I looked at this ahead of the meeting, I had a couple thoughts and comments and ideas. I would really like you to explore different placement of the trails and the paths and connectivity. One thing that did catch my eye, and again, if this is not intended, then don't do it, but lining up the common path in the middle with the path to the woods, and then possibly a connector, even if it was a small, gap between parcels, so to speak, to connect to the Oats Trail. The reason I say that is I'm thinking, from my house, when we go to walk to Community Park, the shortest way is to come down Brookfield Road and then cut in to the subdivision and go back. So thinking along the same lines, if folks had to go all the way down to the access to the park and up, or zigzag through streets and sidewalks, if there was more of a visibly linear path that might cut down on some of the traffic. And then, we're always worried about pedestrian versus vehicle. So if there was some continuity there, I think that would be definitely helpful, and especially for folks with limited mobility, people with young children, strollers. And then I guess the only other thing that had come to mind, well, there's two things, sorry. I agree about the stub road to the west. To Dr. Prithrich's point, if there is topographical or environmental impacts in the northwest corner, maybe the stub road being reserved up there may make more sense. Again, I've not walked on this parcel just because it's private property at this point, so I'm not familiar with the layout. But again, when you get survey information or data back on the topography and what you're dealing with, maybe that would be a good western relief. And then I just had a quick question on the multi-unit. Are those, is it fair to say those are four independent houses that just share common walls? I know Etta and Sam love my fondness for zero lot line properties in Iowa. Is that the concept?
Yes.
Okay. When I'm looking at squares, that's the only thing that fills in the blanks for me. So,
Sure.
Okay. But it would generally be, would it be fair to say that they're the same type of available property, just maybe at a conjoined different price point and physical layout? Meaning that they're still standalone, except they're sharing that common parcel, for lack of the common area.
Or those are all over the county in different places, Westchester.
Oh, no, I know. The reason I ask that, and I'll probably ask that for the rest of my life, is in Iowa City, not in this concept, but zero lot lines in Iowa City artificially inflated the housing market. So the only way you could get in at a price point south of 150,000 was if you had basically apartment neighbors. So what happened is a house that we traditionally could buy for 200 in Oxford in Iowa City is somewhere near 350 or higher. So when we're talking about affordable housing, the menu of options we offer will alter or potentially alter the price points. And actually in Westchester, that's a fair observation. It's a lot harder to buy a traditional 3-bedroom ranch at the same price point. So yeah, that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, and to answer your question, it's a great question. They will be zero lot line on only the multifamily, and they might come in. My guesstimate, my goal was to make them more affordable than the single family. However, in reality, it might only be 5 or 10% if it's lucky. However, it was really more to have a place for people to go that somebody might not be living with somebody else, and they might want to live kind of close to somebody to have that feeling of somewhat of security, to have someone literally right next door was kind of my goal.
Yeah.
Perfect. No, and I appreciate that. I'm not opposed to them. I'm just always aware of them. Mr. Dana.
Could a screen come up in across the design that shows where the pond is exactly, or is that's there and I've missed it? I'm trying to get a sense of how big it is in proportion to the surrounding open space, if that's the way to phrase it.
Chapter, the pond is there in the northeast corner. As you can see, it's probably only maybe a quarter to a third of that open space that we have set aside in that northeast corner. We will be looking to expand that and provide retention and water quality for the majority of the development. There is a small portion of this property that does drain to the southeast, so that's why we have another basin in the southeast corner.
Okay. So you're looking to expand it because
the existing pond is not large enough to accommodate, to meet the city's requirements or the Ohio EPA's requirements for detention and water quality.
Okay.
We've
Good.
also been made aware that there's been some water issues to the property owners to the east, and our intentions are to develop this correctly to hopefully alleviate some of their problems. And I think we'll be able to accomplish that while we're out there machining dirt, hopefully.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Dr. Prithridge.
So just kind of build on what Chairman Watt said, and in thinking about this a little bit more, to the degree that you could create some kind of continuity northwest to southeast through a multi-use path connection or some patchwork, I think really will, to the degree you can line those things up, because I think it's a natural desire line that people will, from Autumn Drive, for example, to the east, will probably traverse your neighborhood to get to the park so I think that, and we don't have code that, for example, requires you to do multi-use path. The code requires you to do pedestrian connectivity through, but if you can make those segments line up, we do have a complete streets ordinance in the city of Oxford that's supposed to mean that when we do street projects, it serves all modes equally. And you guys are doing that with the pedestrian. But if you can think about it, I think we have a community park and kids will traverse your development on bicycles from adjacent subdivisions. So to the degree that you could provide some continuous bicycle facilities, whether that's a multi-use path or making your segments line up, is really going to make this, I think, really a high quality development that will allow the residents to get to the park, to get to town. People will traverse your neighborhood and see it, which I think will be to the benefit. So yeah, and I would just, I think you can piece those things together. And again, that may mean moving that northern connection a little bit towards the center, because then you won't have to push up through the woods. If you can find that lot somewhere else, we can look at that. So anyway, that's thanking you in advance for trying to figure out that design problem.
Doctor, I hear you and the rest of the commission loud and clear. The next time you see this plan, it will have better continuity with walking paths, and it will also have a secondary access for emergency use.
Right, well, I'm not seeing any raised hands, so I'll just do a last call for anybody who has any questions, comments, or observations. I am not seeing any. So Ms. Reed, Mr. Hall, do you folks have what you came to look for?
I know I do, and I appreciate Planning Commission's time tonight. I know that it is a thankless job, but the reality of it is, at the end of the day, we are the future. So thank you for your commitment to this community and the county for a better future for our kids or our grandchildren tomorrow. I mean that. And I want to let you know, in my opinion, you have one of the best staffs I've ever worked with. For me to be able to get this far and be on the same page, it's been a credible experience. So thank you for all the opportunity in Oxford, and I look forward to making you proud in the future.
Thank you for engaging in the Planning Commission. We appreciate the opportunity for dialogue early in the process.
Absolutely. Thank you, and have a wonderful night.
You too.
Thank you.
All right. We have no old business that I am aware of or that I'm privy to. Sam, if you would like to highlight some of the administrative approvals that that we've worked on, I would greatly appreciate it.
Sure, will do, Mr. Chair. The first one was it looked like an alley lot, but it actually is an existing alley lot. So we're not creating a new alley lot. There's a couple slivers that are adjacent to existing lots. And so those are being consolidated. That way, if there is future development, then they can use those in their setback calculation rather than having to measure from them. So that was administratively approved in the past. And the second one on North Campus actually came as a result after a Board of Zoning Appeals approval for parking and lot coverage. There was an agreement between two property owners to for a transaction for just 4 feet sliver of land. So that one was also approved. So no hearings were needed on those items. Those were administrative, and no action is necessary, but I just wanted to report those to you as our standard practice.
Mr. Keebler?
I have a question. When I first looked at this, it appeared to me you were creating a new alley lot. Now, hopefully our code does not permit that, does it?
It does not.
Consolidated, it's a new lot because you've moved some slivers and whatever, but we don't have to worry about creating additional alley lots, do we?
No, sir. That's absolutely not allowed.
Okay.
If that was something that was requested, it would come before this body. However, we wouldn't recommend it, so it would probably never show up on the agenda. The phrase "new lot" is a requirement of the county for the surveyors to use that. So whenever the boundary is changing, so because they're adding that sliver to an existing alley lot, it required them to use the phrase "new lot" when it's actually an existing lot that was getting a little bit larger. So
when I read through the thing, I'm looking at this and I'm like, wait a minute, we're not creating new alley lots, are we? Okay,
Yep.
good. Thank you for clearing that up.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, we have no other agenda items, so we've already had the chance for announcements. So unless there's something that folks missed at the beginning that they feel is imperative for everyone to know, I will entertain a motion so we can adjourn in under an hour.
I so move.
Mr. Dana and Mr. Keebler win the draw. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of adjourning, raise your hands. Thank you, folks. We have all consensus to adjourn at 7:57.
And happy trails, Lynn.
Thank you, Lynn.
Yeah. Thank you, Lynn, for all your service.
Thanks, Lynn. We love you.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Thanks, Lynn.
All right.